pumpkin flavoured spiced custard baked in a flaky pie crust topped with homemade whipped cream and a sprinkling of cinnamon. This is really one of the most simplest desserts to make. You can buy a pie crust and make the filling all in one bowl. It'll only take you a few minutes, or if you want a challenge or you simply have more time, try making your own pie crust. In a large size mixing bowl, measure out the flour, 1 2/3 of a cup, and a pinch of salt. I have a completely separate video on how to make short crust pastry or pie crust if you would like a more in-depth tutorial. Cut up cold butter into squares and place into the bowl. This recipe calls for 1 part fat, so that could be butter, shortening, or even lard. Use whichever you would like or have on hand. I find butter has the best flavour, but sometimes shortening can add a better texture to the pastry. Make sure your butter is cold, straight out of the fridge, and use a knife to cut it up into small cubes so it's easier to manage. Add the butter to the mixing bowl, breaking the cubes up. The easiest and most effective thing to do here is use clean and dry hands to work the butter into the flour, sort of pressing it between your fingers, rubbing it in. Once your pastry has a sandy texture, it's ready to be formed into a dough. Add 2 to 3 tablespoons of ice water to the bowl and start to mix the dough through with a knife. Using a knife to mix works well as it cuts through the pastry as you mix. Clump together a small amount of pastry, and if it holds without breaking apart, it doesn't need any more water. Work the dough into a ball, sprinkle the work surface with flour, and knead the pastry for about 30 seconds until it becomes smooth. You don't want to work it for too long, or the heat from your hands can start to melt the butter. Wrap the ball of dough in plastic wrap and place into the fridge for at least 30 minutes to rest. At this point, the dough can be left in the fridge for up to a week or freeze it for the next time you may need some pastry. When you're ready to make the pie, remove the pastry from the fridge and give it a few minutes to come up to room temperature. Use a rolling pin to roll the dough out to about 1 centimeter thick or 1/3 of an inch. Place the pastry into a pie dish and use a small knife to cut off the excess pastry, leaving a few centimeter overhang for decoration. Fold the overhang of pastry under and use your fingers and thumb like I am here and shape the dough into scalloped edges. Place the pie crust back into the fridge for at least 30 minutes to chill. This will stop any shrinkage while it bakes. When the pie crust has been chilling for at least 30 minutes, start to make the pumpkin pie filling. In a clean bowl, measure out a cup of white sugar. You can also use brown sugar here, or half of each if you would prefer more of a caramel undertone to the pie. I like it simple, so I'm just sticking with white sugar. Next up, you'll need the spices for the pumpkin pie. If you don't already have a good collection of spices, a quick shortcut here would be to use pumpkin pie spice. It's a handful of spices that are commonly used in pumpkin pie, but the only thing I don't like about it is every brand is different with different amounts of ingredients. If you're going to use it, you'll need a couple of teaspoons, just make sure it's one you've had before and you've liked. If you're making your own, you'll need cinnamon, nutmeg, ground ginger, and optionally the smallest amount of ground cloves. Add each to the bowl along with a pinch of salt to round out all the flavours. All the ingredients for the filling go straight into one bowl, making it easy to make and clean up as well. This pie is great to make ahead of time, so make it when you have a spare moment and keep it in the fridge until you need it. Crack in 2 good quality medium-sized eggs. I find that 2 whole eggs gives the best consistency. You can use 1 egg and 2 egg yolks if you would like a heavier, creamier pie, but I find it can be a little overpowering. Many recipes state that using egg yolks rather than 2 whole eggs will stop the pie from getting the large crack through the middle, but this is caused by the pie over baking, so as long as you keep a good eye on it, you shouldn't have a problem. Use a whisk to mix the ingredients together until well combined and there are no longer any lumps. Finally, add the pumpkin puree, canned or homemade. I'm using canned, but I would have liked to use homemade if pumpkins were in season where I live. If you're making homemade, just bake pumpkin in the oven until soft, puree in a blender and you'll have pumpkin puree. You'll also need 1 1/3 cups of light cream, evaporated milk or half and half. I would recommend light cream, but use whatever you have on hand. Use the whisk to mix everything together until you are left with a smooth and creamy custard. Remove the pie crust from the fridge and pour in the pumpkin pie filling. Make sure it has a small amount of room at the top as it will expand while baking. Place into a 230°C or 450°F oven and immediately turn the temperature down to 170 or 325. Bake for about 50 minutes to an hour or until the centre of the pie only slightly jiggles. Leave to cool completely before transferring to the fridge for at least a few hours. Serve your pumpkin pie chilled with a dollop of homemade whipped cream and a sprinkling of cinnamon. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. Let me know if you're going to give it a try. Thank you for watching and I will see you in my next video.